One thing that Dark Brandon has done in the new IRA bill is hire 87,000 new IRS agents, target regular everyday Americans, stop Biden's shadow army, says Senator Ted Cruz. Now, what I find to be particularly funny about this is that, like, there's a lot of conservatives out there doing self-reports about how many, like, small business owners are engaging in tax evasion, I guess. Don't know why they chose to openly state this, but it's, like, pretty funny that, like, every single conservative has come out and complained about 87,000 new IRS agents. Now, the reason why they're doing this is because the IRS is severely underfunded. Their systems are so outdated. They still use fucking floppy disk out there. Let's take a look at what Senator Ted Cruz is saying. To hunt you down and take your money. Stop the Manchin Schumer bill. Stop Brandon's army. Now, this unironically is pretty funny, in my opinion. Like, they're making him look cool for some fucking reason. The easiest way to sell this is to be like, no, the reason why we can't go after rich people and the IRS goes after, like, broke middle-class people and hit them with audits is because we just don't have the undertaking that required to go after the wealthy. So that's all you need to say to justify it. Be like, no, we're gonna go after wealthy people who are using loopholes and filing taxes inappropriately and incorrectly. And then boom, you sold it. Now, will it actually happen? I don't know. I do think that the IRS does try to go after whoever it fucking can. And whoever they can is usually like upper middle class folks, doctors, lawyers, people who are high earners overall that don't have the legal loopholes that are afforded to the wealthiest individuals in society, that don't even need to like take advantage of like LLCs and whatnot in an effort to hide their assets because all of their assets are tied to massive corporations like Jeff Bezos and shit. So we'll see what happens. IRS does not go after rich people because they don't have the resources to do so. Yes. But the IRS really does come after small earners too. In 2015, 2016, and 2017, the IRS audited me without cause and made me pay several thousands more in taxes when I only earned between 50 and 60K a year. It was really rough. No, I know. Part of the reason why the IRS goes after small fish is because the big fish have already set the game up and set the rules up in a way that benefits them anyway. Hopefully, this will create institutional change within the IRS as well. For the record, and this chatter is correct, it should not be our job to figure out how to pay our taxes. That is 100% correct. Countries like Norway quite literally already file your taxes for you and send you money back at the end of the year. Or vice versa, send you like a receipt basically. Now, the only reason why we can't do that here in the United States is because of lobbying. Lobbying on behalf of companies like H&R Block and numerous other third-party, TurboTax, the companies that provide third-party private tax filing systems. Intuit is another one that is a multiple billion-dollar industry at this point. They like getting money from the government to be the subsidiaries that file your taxes for you. And they make it seem as though they can do it for free. But actually, they're not doing it for free. They 100% are trying to charge you. And they do regularly charge you all the time. Intuit is TurboTax, yes. 80% of new IRS revenue will come from small businesses earning under 200K, says tax experts. That is a reactionary newspaper, New York Post, creating propaganda against this new bill, for the record. If you're going to send me a fucking New York Post article saying with the tax experts, understand what the motivation is behind writing something like this. A key provision in the Inflation Reduction Act, which throws away $80 billion to the IRS, throws an extra $80 billion to the IRS to improve the agency's collection of underreported income, will end up targeting small business owners to pay for the legislation, according to nonpartisan watchdog Joint Committee on Taxation. The group estimates that between 78 and 90% of the estimated additional $200 billion the IRS will collect will come from small businesses making less than $200,000 annually. Just 4% of the 9% will come from businesses making north of $500,000 a year, meaning the legislation is in sharp contrast to Biden's longstanding claim that he wouldn't raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000. The hidden truth under this, for the record, nonpartisan watchdog. Watchdogging taxes is not a nonpartisan issue, unless you are literally anti-tax, which, you know, I guess if you're an American, you are. Here's the beautiful part about this. Don't hide your assets. Like, this is an admission. If this is the reality, then it's an admission that small businesses making less than $200,000 annually are regularly trying to fucking hide their assets or hide their income or, you know, do some fuckery. Dudes praising the IRS is like praising the cops. They're all a bunch of class traders that help the state to fuck over regular working class people. Fuck them, in my opinion. How do you think this machine of the state is supposed to operate without being funded? That is a ridiculous fucking take, dude. I am not an anarchist. I am not an ANCAP. That is so fucking silly. I want the IRS to do what the IRS is supposed to do, which is ensure that people pay their fair share, which is to ensure that they, you know, get people to pay their taxes. A lot of these systems are incredibly unjust, and people try to fucking take advantage of that as best as they can. That is ridiculous. It's ridiculous to be anti-tax. How do you think shit's gonna get paid for? How do you think roads get paid for? I want to ensure that the well-funded government actually, you know, make sure that those coffers pay for good things like public schools, pay for good things like roads, pay for good things like public transit. Problem is they don't. Yes, they do. They 100% do. So much of the government operates in a way that you cannot even comprehend, in a way that you take for granted, and worse, in a way that you think private corporations are filling the void. It's just that in America, there's a constant public-private partnership that makes it seem as though the incredibly expensive, not-for-profit government initiatives, like GPS, for example, will turn over to the hands of private corporations, so you end up thinking it's actually Google that's operating the fucking satellites in general. And yes, while the government also is doing a lot of horrifying shit, like funding ICE, funding police for no reason, giving additional funds to the police, there is profoundly important things that the government does that you take for granted. There's a reason why you can safely go and, for example, purchase food at the grocery store, okay, at the supermarket, at the Walmart, wherever the fuck you go, and not live in fear that the food that you're going to consume is going to immediately kill you. Yes, certainly lobbyists have made sure that there's enough microplastics in there that will give you cancer later down the line, and that's a systemic problem that we need to solve. But, you know, at least it doesn't kill you immediately with like mad cow disease or some shit. How the IRS is raising money and not recovering stolen money in this article? Yeah. But unfortunately, Americans have such an anti-tax perspective, no matter what part, no matter where they are, that they refuse to comprehend how this operates. Most of you are taxed with W-2s, and yet you still have this like anti-tax attitude. When if your primary earnings are coming from a W-2, this doesn't even fucking impact you. And that's the hilarious part about this. Like this is not going to impact you at all. And yet you have been sold a lie. It's no different than the estate tax. And people freaking the fuck out about the estate tax. When the cap for the estate tax or the minimum wealth for the estate tax required impacts like 15,000 Americans. You know what I mean? Now especially. Like just such a minuscule amount. And yet everyone thinks like, oh, I'll have inheritance. No, you won't, dumbass. Conservatives have done a great job of convincing their poor followers that they don't massively benefit from taxes. Find the reason we need a better IRS. U.S. government's 2021 revenue versus expenditure. Individual income taxes, Social Security and Medicare, corporate income taxes, miscellaneous revenue, custom duties, excise taxes, unemployment insurance, estate gift and taxes, versus the expenditure, income security, Social Security, health, national defense, Medicare, net interest, commerce, housing credit, education, general government. Look how small it's getting. Veterans benefits. So you're already fucking funding the government. Look at the corporate income taxes. You're already funding the government like a motherfucker. Okay? You're funding the government all the time. So the IRS can't necessarily come after you anyway because unless your boss is engaging in some kind of fuckery with your W-2s and the way that they're like not paying your taxes, in which case you're still fine. Your boss might not be. You understand? But if you're a wage earner, if you're a wage laborer, this does not impact you in a meaningful capacity, okay? The IRA would allow an IRA direct free file program. Such program would allow taxpayers to file their taxes directly with the IRS for free. Each year, Americans spend 2 billion hours and 30 billion filing their taxes. A direct free file option will be offered with the IRA. I didn't even know that this was a part of the provisions. This is beautiful. This directly strikes at the heart of the TurboTax lobby that have made billions of fucking dollars making your tax system and your filing system more complicated, specifically so that they can be the mediator, when ironically, no such mediator ever needed to exist. Craziest part of the chart is the large health spending portion with how shitty our healthcare system is. Yeah, well, the reason why our healthcare... Dude, America famously spends the most on healthcare and gets the 37th best results out of all of the OECD nations, okay? Yes, part of the reason why we pay the most for healthcare is because Big Pharma, it has a stranglehold, just a gorilla grip coochie that the government loves being inside of, okay? That's the reality. That's part of the fucking reason. Big Pharma is part of the reason why our healthcare system is incredibly expensive. Hospitals are also incredibly expensive as well. Private hospitals that still completely rely on voluntary donations from wealthy people and also from, government subsidies to operate, turn around and try to increase profit margins, turn around and try to at least fund their hospital system in some way, shape, or form. That's also part of the reason why, rural areas do not have any fucking medical care, no adequate medical care. That's why we've talked about this many times over, but like in places, in rural places especially, like EMTs are like the only form of healthcare that you can get within reach. It's crazy. The country is fundamentally broken. Yeah. And then they also obviously are playing fast and loose with your information. Remember, Intuit, the company behind the large tax filing software, agreed to pay restitution to customers who were charged when using its free tax filing software. They were charged when they were not supposed to, and they had to pay out $141 million to customers after a class action lawsuit. They also regularly have leaks of your data, so there's another part there too. There's another issue there as well. Big oopsie there. Parliamentarian killed inflation caps for pharma companies in this bill. Senate parliamentarian kills key policy in Dem reconciliation bill. No. I refuse. Democrats have lost a key piece of the prescription drug pricing reform. No shot. No. Jail that person. Throw that person in jail. No. And hire a new person. That's an appointed position. They don't get to do that. If the Democrats don't fight for this, I'm going to lose my fucking mind, dude. Oh my God, this is so annoying. The Dems' second major policy to lower prices is inflation caps. As the Kaiser Family Foundation explains, this bill requires drug manufacturers to pay a rebate if drug prices increase faster than the rate of inflation. Briefed on the McDonald's overnight guidance, the parliamentarian ruled that the inflation caps for commercial market do indeed violate the bird rule. Here's the bird rule, dude. I'll flip the fucking bird inside of you, okay? Get the fuck out of here. What is this shit? They did this with a $15 minimum wage. I really do hope that they don't let this happen with this. I really do hope that they don't allow this to happen. The Democrats will need to change their inflation caps language so the caps no longer apply to the commercial market, and the change will affect the total savings of the bill. Inflation caps brought $100.7 billion of savings according to the CBO. How much of that came from Medicare and how much of that from the commercial market is unclear. But one estimate says that removing the latter would cost up to $40 billion in savings. That's crazy. That the parliamentarian, a fake made-up position, a fake made-up hurdle. What did you get? A fake made-up position could just like fucking turn around and be like, yeah, I decided that this fake made-up position of mine allows me to just like fundamentally alter a bill that will make the price of this bill $40 billion more expensive. That's fucking bullshit. And anyone who, we should not let them get away with this. That's all I'm going to say. Just completely ridiculous. Like I said, it's just good enough, which means it's too good, okay, for a lot of people. Kirsten Sinema already took the carried interest loophole out immediately. And, you know, Joe Manchin is like sitting around looking for ways to destroy this thing, torpedo this thing, but ultimately conceded. Let's see what fucking happens. They're trying to gut it as best as possible, even though the bill itself already comes, just like every other fucking Democratic bill, with concessions. Is there a zero-debt strategy in the U.S. like Germany? A lot of the bills that the Democratic Party puts will be against. They won't deficit spend. Are you in support of the anti-inflation bill? I think it's decent. Which, when you're used to just having L's and nothing in general, then just decent is something you'll look forward to. It doesn't go nearly as far as it needs to for climate change provisions or climate change funding. But yeah, I'll take the fucking crumbs at this point. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing you can do. I want national health care, guys. You know what I mean? I don't even want fucking Medicare for all. I don't think Medicare for all goes far enough. I want nationalized health care. Do you understand? But I'm not going to sit here and act like, you know, this is, you know, even allowing Medicare to be able to negotiate pharmaceutical prices is not a good thing. Like, it is a good thing. Not only is it a good thing, but it's wild that it's even up for debate. The only country on the planet where that is illegal for the government to do. Paul Krugman, can't believe I might agree with him on this, talks about the IRA. He says, when I look at the substance of those attacks, I can't help feeling more cheerful than I have in months. For one thing, the debate over proposal feels like a return to a more innocent time where Republicans try to make their case with dishonest claims about economic policy, not insane conspiracy theories. So Paul Krugman is a cuck, and obviously he's like describing it in cuck terms, but this is a good thing. I do talk about this. Remember when I used to talk about like how the old school 90s Republican Party would talk about like tort reform and you know, deficits, like deficit hawking, but the new school Republican Party decided that that is not actually a good thing to talk about and that nobody really gives a shit about that, no matter how much you fucking scream about it. So that's why they do the conspiracy stuff. That's why they do the reactionary right-wing populist shit, which is very successful. So anything... When you actually do anything as the Democratic Party, the reactionary Republicans have to stand in opposition to that. So when you legitimately put forward economic policy that's even marginally better for American citizens, they are going to come out against it. They're going to be like, oh, no, it's bad. Infrastructure spending is a great example of this, where they like literally have to come out and be like, no, even though our towns are fucking underwater, we have to be against infrastructure spending because Democrats are pushing for it. Same with this, right? So I think like calling this the Inflation Reduction Act was a really solid idea. It was a really good idea. Saying that this does actually reduce inflation, or it combats inflation, not by increasing interest rates, but instead by using the legislative body, is a really solid way to sell it. And GOP fucking freaking out over it is good because it's like super tame shit. I don't like that, of course, Paul Krugman says, it's a good omen for Democrats' new approach to climate policy, one that relies mainly on carrots rather than sticks, on incentives to do the right thing rather than penalties for doing the wrong thing. We know that climate change is happening. We know that it is inevitable that societal collapse will happen. So the carrot stick argument is fucking idiotic. We don't even need sticks. We need fucking guns at this point, okay? The idea of like, carbon taxes, a policy provision, a key policy that literally, what's his face? Before he started going against Obama, before he ran against Obama, a policy position that Republicans agreed on, a policy position that Republicans actually chose as, John McCain, a policy position that Republicans actually chose as a countermeasure. Time and time again, I have shown you that, when Democrats advocate for certain things and truly are able to popularize certain policy provisions, right? Republicans have to counter that and make concessions. But because Democrats have chosen not to do that for so many fucking years, we've forgotten about a time when the Republican Party collectively had to find a conciliatory measure in the form of Obamacare. Obamacare was a right-wing right-wing policy. John McCain's carbon tax, cap and trade, was a right-wing policy. It was a right-wing policy that was built around concessions, built around conceding to an actual socialized healthcare measure, an actually popular socialized healthcare measure, an actually popular climate change, like an adequate solution to combating climate change. So remember that. The Obamacare, or also known as the Affordable Care Act, was not only a right-wing solution that was conceding to the otherwise left-wing Democratic Party proposals for socialized health care, it was also first implemented in Massachusetts by Romney, by Mitt Romney. It was known as Romney Care in Massachusetts. It was very popular, very successful, but it was literally right-wing. So don't let fucking people fool you into thinking that, like, Republicans are anything but reactionary, or the Democrats are, the Democrats are just simply incapable. Yeah, the Heritage Foundation came up with the ACA originally in the 90s. What I'm saying is that we need to, what I'm saying is that we need to vote for more libs? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we need to fucking bully the Democrats in Congress. We need to bully them where they stand. We need to make sure that they feel your wrath. We need to make sure that they, we need to kick their asses into fucking gear so that they do actually put forward some level of progressive legislation. GOP, we're already seeing just how hard it is for Republicans to attack this approach. It will get even harder. Yeah, that stuff is bullshit. Republicans don't give a fuck about that. The carrot and the stick part of this bill is not necessary or important. The act calls for $369 billion in climate spending, mainly tax credits for families and businesses that adopt clean energy technologies, improve energy efficiency, and so on. It would also spend $64 billion on extending subsidies that help keep health insurance affordable. This new spending would be fully paid for and then some, mainly by cracking down on tax avoidance and evasion, which is why Republicans are freaking the fuck out. The biggest revenue source is to be a new minimum tax on large corporations. The legislation would also give desperately underfunded IRS more resources to crack down on tax cheats. It would seek to save Medicare money by giving the program power to negotiate over drug prices. So the two key provisions in here that are going to make this bill a pay-for bill are, like Paul Krugman adequately summarizes here, Medicare negotiation power, which is an Obama-era legislation that Obama wanted to do that he didn't really push for that much, and was made illegal in the Obamacare as a part of the concessions that they gave to the Republican Party that never even ended up voting for it. So remember that. Medicare, I think it's called Medicare D, which is literally like 15 drugs that like Medicare as a large purchaser of pharmaceuticals would be allowed to negotiate pharmaceutical prices. This is a normal process for every other country. That's the reason why if you go to Turkey even, or if you go to Part D was Bush era, not Obama. Part D has been around, yes. I'm saying that like Obama said that he was going to implement this. Medicare is the government health insurance for old people, okay, for the elderly. It is an absolute necessity for their survival. Every other country does this. These people are not productive. They're not in the labor force. They need desperately help from the government. They pay into it their entire fucking lives, and then that's what you get by the end of your life, okay? So just understand that. Medicaid is for poor people, but we're not going to get into that. So Medicare is still incredibly expensive. It's a gigantic tax burden, or it's a gigantic a sizable chunk of where the government spends its money. Why? Because pharmaceutical prices are incredibly fucking high, sometimes 10 times higher than our counterparts over in Canada, what they pay for insulin. Insulin, of course, which was sold as a patent for $1 by a Canadian researcher, if I'm not mistaken, specifically so that everyone could have access to insulin. But, these disgusting, psychotic, parasitic, vulturous, for-profit, healthcare and pharmaceutical corporations turned around and still try to charge you thousands of dollars because without insulin, you'll fucking die. Inelastic demand, as I've talked about time and time again. Yes, the patent was sold for $1. Why can Canada pay? Why can the average Canadian citizen get away with paying 10 times less for insulin than the average American citizen? Why? Well, that's because when they are purchasing this medicine in bulk to enter it into the country, they are able to bargain with the providers of insulin. Corporations come in, they say, well, you're going to buy a lot, right? You're buying in wholesale. So you can do wholesale prices. We'll give you wholesale prices. Now, we here in the United States of America are not allowed to do that. It is illegal for the government to negotiate. The government is still a massive purchaser of insulin and other kinds of pharmaceutical products, and yet they are not allowed to negotiate for it. The VA was the first government healthcare provider that was able to negotiate pharmaceutical prices when they're purchasing it wholesale. And this provision in the IRA will allow Medicare to do the same thing. This is incredibly good. It's not only incredibly good, but it's like the bare minimum that every other fucking country does. Insulin is covered here. There's no charge to the client. Sorry, I meant like when Canada buys insulin, but the cost of insulin for individuals that use it is still there's a real cost to it. You know what I mean? Even if you're not paying out of pocket. Negotiations are illegal for the government to engage in. Understand that. Only country on the planet where negotiations are illegal. They're banned. Why is the government not allowed to negotiate the cost of wholesale insulin? Can you explain, please? Well, my friend, do you want to hear the pharma lobby take on it, or do you want to hear the real reason? Because the real reason is because they just can get away with it. They have bought our politicians for many, many decades, since the beginning of time, pretty much. And America is, a bunch of corporations in a big trench coat and not a real fucking government. And they can get away with doing such things. They've bought out all of our politicians, and they can get away with making it illegal. And most of you are too busy talking about, like, fucking, I don't know, the one trans 14-year-old that's on the swim team in Utah to pay attention to that real fuckery that's happening. Okay? Because you're a fucking idiot. Most Americans are fucking dumb. You know this. You live with them every day. You yourself are probably dumb too. So am I. We're too busy fighting about fucking, trans bathroom bills or whatever the fuck to pay attention to these crooks that steal and cheat and lie regularly and make your life worse. Now, Republicans are attacking the bill. They can't openly defend their interests of tax evaders and avoiders. Yes, they can, and they are doing that. Although in their long-term efforts to starve the IRS of resources shows that in practice they are pro-tax cheaters. What they have done instead is claim, citing an estimate from Congress's nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation, that the legislation would raise taxes on the middle class and that this violates one of Joe Biden's campaign pledges. It's a bogus claim on multiple levels. First, the act wouldn't raise personal income taxes on anyone. Full stop. It just wouldn't. But the Joint Committee on Taxation projects instead our distributional effects, an attempt to estimate the indirect burden on families resulting from other taxes, which in this case essentially means the possible effect on wages of requiring large corporations to pay a minimal amount of tax. Estimating these effects is useful, but are they a tax increase on workers? Almost any government policy will have an adverse effect on the income of someone somewhere. Is everything the government does a tax increase? Furthermore, if I were going to consider the indirect effect on family incomes of legislation that doesn't directly affect their taxes, why not consider the whole act, not just a part of it? The Joint Committee of Taxation table that Republicans are citing notes that it excludes the impact of several major pieces of the bill that would help families in ways ranging from reduced drug costs and larger health insurance subsidies to clean energy initiatives. Add those in, and the middle class almost surely ends up ahead. This is how most of these initiatives work. Medicare for All is seen as a burdensome, costly bill that will end up, increasing your taxes or whatever, except it ends up actually saving you a fuckload of money in return. Have fun getting Zoomers and Millennials to pay for the Boomers' retirement. Yeah, not happening. The Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund, which pays retirements and survivors' benefits, will only be able to pay scheduled benefits on a timely basis until 2034 and will only pay 77% of scheduled benefits. Okay, dude. Stop diluting the argument that I'm making. Every kind of government spending initiative, okay, requires some mechanism to increase its funds. And ultimately, if you are in the working class, the math is that you always end up ahead if you're in the working class. The wealthy will actually have more of their money taken away from them, and they'll, use less of the benefits that the government is offering because they're usually above the pay grade that the government is helping. Okay? So you end up reducing medicine prices, you end up getting more help from the government in return. So you end up ahead when you're the middle class, but the way that this works, unfortunately, makes it easy to basically claim that no, they're taxing you. They always do this. The JCT assumes that a significant part of the revenue to be gained from taxing corporations would eventually come out of wages. That's an area of intense academic debate, but there are good reasons to believe that when you're cracking down on tax avoidance, the effect on wages is actually minimal. So that is why I said that the nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxes is still engaging in, newsflash, incredibly reactionary right-wing economics. Raising corporate taxes is not going to end up taking money from your pockets. It's not going to end up lowering your fucking tax burden. You understand? It's not going to end up increasing your tax burden unless you're a corporation. And that's the real ticker here. And that's the reason why I say it's fucking bullshit. Finally, despite all the ways that the JCT analysis tilts the playing field against the Inflation Reduction Act, the claimed increase in middle-class taxes is tiny. For example, according to the JCT, the federal tax rate on families earning between $50,000 and $75,000 a year would rise from 13% to 13.1%. And the benefits that you get from pushing for said bill would literally be significantly more than a 1% increase, okay? A 0.1% increase. So the GOP attack on this proposal is, in a word, pathetic. The only way that it might gain traction is the media both sides it's reporting, which they are doing, by the way, failing to inform news consumers that Republican claims about the bill are in fact untrue, which they are not doing, of course, because that's what the media does. Remember when I called this out yesterday when they literally said, Democrats and economists say that this has a deflationary effect on inflation. Republicans, on the other hand, claim otherwise. And it's like, okay, who cares what the Republicans are claiming? Just explain what the fucking actual situation at hand is. The fuck is wrong with you? Anyway, I think I've adequately explained this.